true identity is consciousness itself. I'm very happy with that. The question is, when we move beyond that into defining that consciousness as having characteristics, where's the evidence for the characteristics?
What characteristics are you talking about?
Stillness, love, stillness, love, resilience, truth, calm.
Yeah. So let me give.
I kind of in with it. I'm in with those, and I'd like to believe those, but
I don't want you to believe them. I'd rather you see them for yourself. Here's how it looks to me. But you know how if you're watching a movie at the cinema and they've got a screen and the movie is projected on the screen, it doesn't matter what the movie's about, what horrible scenes are played out in the movie, or hilarious scenes for that matter, or tear-jerking scenes, or whatever it might be, raunchy scenes. The screen is unaffected. And there's no movie that's so scary or raunchy or troubling that the screen just goes, whoa, I can't handle this, I'm out. The screen's cool with it all. Well, as I see it, and this is just a metaphor, obviously, who we really are is the screen. And, well, I'll tell you a story. So, which you may well have heard, because I related it recently, actually. This was about 1.5 years ago. And I sit down to read that old book, The Missing Link, because when I first read it, and I was like, no one can read this book and fail to be impacted. I'm like, we'll see about this. Nah. And then I looked at it again, maybe 6 years later, and I was like, let's have another look. Nah, rubbish. And then I looked at it again in 2009. I was like, whoa, there's something in the book. There's something here. There's something here. So I picked it up. This is maybe 15 months ago. I picked it up to have a read one night, and I thought, I'll start at the beginning. So I start with the introduction, which is like 1 page with 4 sentences on it. One of the sentences goes, a couple of sentences goes, there are those in this world who believe that miracles do not occur. I can assure such skeptics that they do. With hope and faith as beacons, anything is possible. Now, I've never been overly keen on the word miracle. I'm not even that keen on the word faith. I've always been much more of the, I'd rather know something than I've kind of liked hope, because there's been plenty of times when a bit of hope came in handy. But I read these couple of sentences, and there are those in this world who believe that miracles do not occur. I can assure such skeptics that they do. With hope and faith as beacons, anything is possible. And all of a sudden, I fell out of all this thinking that hadn't even looked like thinking. It had just looked like my game plan for life, my accumulated knowledge and understanding so far of the world and me and work and business and people and relationships and all the stuff I know, okay? For better or for worse. It wasn't like I was feeling bad and I read this thing and then I fell out of it. It was like I was just having a Jamie day and things were as they were and I felt fine about it. And I had various things I was preoccupied with and various things I was excited about and that sort of thing. But I had kind of my game plan for living. So I read this sentence and suddenly I'm like, poof, and I fall awake to the moment. I fall out of all that thinking that didn't look like thinking. And what seemed like a long time later, but was probably about 1.5 seconds, I'm like, poof, back in the room kind of thing, with an amazing feeling of peace and well-being and clarity. And what was in my head when I came back was, oh, you're going to have a beautiful life and work you love, and you don't even need to know how it's going to happen. And I was like, holy shit, that's not my usual game plan. My usual game plan is, as long as I know exactly how it's going to happen, this could just work out okay, right? I'm like, no, you're going to have a beautiful life and work you love, and you don't even need to know how it's going to happen. It's like, whoa. And here's the funny thing. So I was listening to a interview with a psychedelic scientist doing psychedelic experiments around things like curing PTSD with psychedelics, curing addiction to smoking and alcohol with psychedelics and that sort of thing. This is research in the US that was banned for decades. And so they're doing it again, research with LSD and psilocybin and that sort of thing. And so I was listening to it, and he said something really interesting. He said that in the cases where it worked, each time the people had a healing experience as a result from taking the psychedelic, it was as a result of having a mystical experience, a spiritual experience. And they've got this thing, which is an empirical scale, which is called the mystical experience scale. So it's a scientific scale used for evaluating spiritual experiences. And they have, or what they call mystical experiences, and they have 6 qualities. The first is kind of the dissolution of time and space, like being thrown fully into the now. The second is a sense of connection to everything and everyone. The third is what William James described as the noetic experience. And the noetic experience is the sense that what you're experiencing is more true than everyday life. Well, that's what I would call a spiritual fact. When you fall out of your maps and models and ideas about yourself and about life and the world and fall awake to the truth of the moment, that experience of insight often or typically has that noetic quality, that sense of being even more true than what you know in everyday life, despite the fact that you couldn't kind of prove it by like showing your work and doing the math and that sort of thing. So I come back to the present, and I have that sense that what I just realized is more true than all my ideas about the world, which looked pretty true and real and reliable and all that sort of stuff. And it stayed with me. Now, I spend a decent amount of each day caught up in the world of how I think it works and all my usual insecurities and preoccupations, all that sort of stuff. But when I think about what I realize, oh, you're going to have a beautiful life, a work you love, and you don't even need to know how it's going to happen. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Can you prove it? No, but I know. Like I know. So I think what happened is, for a heartbeat, you fall out of the movie and catch a glimpse of the screen. And then when you come back to so-called reality, a heartbeat later or an infinity later, when someone say, what was it like? What you're left with is love, peace, stillness. But actually, when you were there, it was just, it's the after effect that we describe using those terms. Because those are terms, things like, if you stop and think about it for a minute, resilience. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's the ability to bounce back. Well, as soon as we're talking about bouncing back, that's happening in time and space. But who you really are is before time and space. So there's no time to bounce back, but there's no time to pop down either. Like there's no time. It's before time, space, and there's no space to bounce. Like something can only bounce if it's got space to bounce. Well, who you really are is before time, space, and matter. So no bouncing. So how it looks to me, Craig, is that those qualities that we often attribute to true self, to who we really are, if we're being precise about it, they're the world of form after effects or side effects or manifestations of the knowledge of who we really are. That's how it's looking at me today. But bear in mind, all these things I'm saying, they're just kind of metaphors, trying to get a handle on something that is before time, space, matter, and handles. So yeah.